Hello YouTube, Jerry Kirkpatrick here, and on June 7th and 8th, 2025, I hosted here in my shop about 35 fellows that were interested in metal shaping to watch 4 fantastic demonstrators. The demonstrations were broken up into 3 demonstrators on Saturday morning and 3 demonstrators on Sunday morning. So I'll be making 6 different videos in this series. The videos will be broken up into the schedule that you see here over my shoulder. So let's get started with our first demonstrator, Ron Covell, who will be making a 1932 Ford grill shell.
So the plan for the day is to make a 32 Ford grill shell. And this is a pretty complicated metal fabrication project, I would say. How many people agree with me? So what makes it difficult? Lots of changes in contours, high crown, low crown, tight radius curve. There's an opening that has to be made accurately so a grill will fit into it. Really a lot of challenges here. And of course I can't make this whole thing in 1 hour, a 1 hour segment today and a 1 hour segment tomorrow, but we'll get as far as we can. But anytime a metal fabricator looks at a complicated part like this, your ideas go toward, okay, is this something I can make from one piece of metal? And I think we can probably all agree that that would be a very poor choice. Now, this was made from one piece of metal, but they used several sets of dies that gradually transformed a flat sheet of metal into a piece like this. And each die set would be $1 or $2 million, and you need a press bigger than this building to do the shaping. So that's not the way any of us will do it. But if we are going to make it with the tools that we have available to us, how many pieces would you make it in? And maybe even more importantly, where would you place the joints?
The corners.
Where you've got those marks.
That's an excellent idea. Yep, that's exactly right. Now, I did put marks on this. I forgot I'd put the marks on it. But why did I put the marks where I placed them? What's up with that? What's the guiding principle for breaking a complicated part up into simpler parts? I look for the areas of greatest curvature and essentially divide them in half. So if there's a line here that we're going to have a joint at, where we'll place the joint. If we do it this way, then shaping the top part is about as difficult as shaping the side part. Whereas if we put it down here, that makes the side very easy to shape. It has very little compound curve, but it makes the top much more difficult to make. Are you with me? And in a similar manner, if you place the joint here, it makes the center quite easy to make up to this point, but the side is a lot more complicated. So I try to divide the difficulty in half. Does that make any kind of sense? And the same is true on the bottom. I won't bother putting tape there. I think you can envision where the joint would be, right about here and here. So that's the general idea about how I would break this down into smaller components. Questions so far?
I do.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you make the side pieces and the top piece and make the little corner pieces and weld it together?
More welds.
More welds.
Too many pieces to make.
Too many pieces to make.
I guess I don't see the advantage. Could you do it that way? Of course you could. But the goal is to have... So you're balancing the number of pieces, the difficulty of shaping, and the lengths of the weld. Those are the 3 factors that come into mind. And in my way of thinking, and my way is not the only way of thinking, but in my way of thinking, if we have only 4 pieces, it's simpler than having, let's say, 6 or 8 pieces. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yep.
And again, this is my way. Many of you might choose to take a completely different approach.
It's always a balance between, like you say, with that, and also the amount of time you're going to sink into finishing out the welds.
Yes, finishing welds is a big deal.
That's another one, because every time you've got to finish out a weld, you get microscopic pinholes, especially on something like that.
Yes.
You might want to get chromed.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah.
the less of that you've got to deal with, the better too.
You could make any shape in the world by cutting a whole bunch of pieces of metal into 1-inch squares and then just fitting one against the other like a patchwork quilt. Easy to model even complex shapes. But the finishing the welds would be ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So a key consideration is minimizing the number of welds. Make sense so far? Okay, now this recess that the grill fits into is kind of a special consideration. That's actually quite a different, difficult shape to manage. And rather than play a guessing game with this, I'll just tell you the way that I would approach it. So let's look at a cross section of this grill shell right down the center. So there's kind of a trough in the back that the weather strip fits into, that the hood lacing fits into, and then there's your shape something like this. So there's a flange in the back that's about 1/8 of an inch tall, and then it rolls forward and toward the top. Now I'm not going to put the bead in this part, and I'm not going to put the channel on the back. We don't have time for that. And if you look at a cross section through here, it's similar but simpler. So we have that same channel toward the rear. So that's pretty much a cross section of the side of it. But notice that this shape and this shape are really quite similar. And in fact, the radius of this corner here, I'm going to say is identical all the way around the inside of this. So if we take a vertical surface and touch this to the grill shell and trace it around, we're going to get a line, and everything inboard from that line is, I'm going to say, exactly the same shape. I haven't measured this with gauges, but just eyeballing it, it's absolutely identical everywhere inboard of this line. Is everybody in agreement with that? So I'm going to say that I will develop this inside curve. I'm talking about, let's draw this big. I'm going to draw this larger. From this point to here, I'm going to say this is a constant radius curve all the way around the inside of that opening. And I'm going to say that we're going to make a hammer form that will allow us to take a flat piece of metal shaped like this, put a hammer form behind it, and then curl this metal around the hammer form to create that shape. And this edge will come right to the center line where I drew that vertical line. How many people have followed what I said? And then the next piece, the top part, will come down to meet that center line. So I think that's a reasonably efficient way to create that complicated shape. Everybody with me so far?
I want to see that getting hit, but yeah.
Well, you will see that getting hit. So that's the general approach I'll take for laying out and fabricating this grill shell. So it just so happens I have a hammer form already made up. So I've been using the term hammer form pretty freely. Probably a lot of you know what that is, and there's probably a few people who don't. So a hammer form is a rigid structure that you use as a backing to hammer metal against. And Don Oliver, where's Don? Don in the back is going to give the demonstration next today exclusively on the hammer forming process, and he'll show a lot of different variations. So this is kind of a combination of a buck used for shaping the large pieces of sheet metal with a hammer form built into it. And to make the form itself, I just got a piece of 3/4 inch solid steel bar. I use heat to bend it into a loop, and I model this to match the opening of the original shell. Obviously this is sectioned quite a bit, but the contour is a very, very close match to the original. So I made a pattern of that opening, and then I heated and bent the bar to match my pattern very exactly. And there's a welded seam here and here. Well, that was easy. So coming up real soon, we're going to bend a piece of sheet metal, a channel I've preformed. I have it right here. We're going to bend this to match the opening. Everybody with me? So I got a piece of flat aluminum and bent a 3/16 flange on it. And I measured the height I needed so that when this is sticking out and you fold it up, the edge comes right to the center of this bar. I used arithmetic to do that. Dangerous stuff. Questions so far? So we need to start bending this piece to be a good fit around the inside of this opening. Everybody with me? So how do you bend a piece accurately? This is getting pretty close to what you were asking about. I mean, the techniques I use for this will be similar, but I won't need heat because this is so easy to move. So I think a good way to bend this would be with an English wheel. English wheel? How do you do that? Well, let's just take a look here. Let's put in the flattest wheel that Jerry has. I could have said you can use many different things to bend the material with, but since we have a wheel here, let's use what we've got. So we're going to bend this piece to match the buck, and I always start with the most difficult, the tightest radius area first. So it looks like the middle of this bend is going to come right about where my finger is, just roughly. And we're not going to get this all in one go around, but we just need to start somewhere and go for it. So I'm just using that lower wheel as kind of an anvil to bend this over to get kind of a tight radius curve. So these are 3-inch diameter wheels, and that's not exactly what I need for this part, but it's close and it's convenient, so we'll start there. So that's not such a bad match. I don't know if you can see it, but even though it's not a perfect fit, it's reasonably close. That's all right, you can just let it flop down. Thanks, Mick. So that worked so well that I'll keep going. Oh, man, we're having a good day so far. And this stuff is soft enough that you can bend it with your hands. And if you, this is 3003 H14, 062 thickness, 1/16 of an inch thickness. So if you bend it too far, when you bend it too far, there's two ways to unbend it. If you want to unbend it just from one point, just at one point, you put that point on the table and press out on both sides. And all of the unbending happens where it touches the table. If the whole thing has too much curvature, you grab it with your hands and you move your hands out, and the whole radius eases up. So that gives you really fine control over how the bend works. I'll do this as quickly as I can. So in about 2 minutes time, we have a pretty decent fit so far.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but pretty darn close. So now we can start thinking about this bend. And guess what? An 8-inch diameter top wheel on an English wheel is just about the right radius to make that bend. Needs to go a little bit closer to the center. So I'll bet not all of you knew that you could use an English wheel to bend angle. It's not a common way to use this tool, but it actually works quite well for this application.
You said you were going to use the English wheel, so I polished all of them, and now you don't.
We will use them in the traditional way later, I promise you. So if I had this to do over, I would have started with the blank a little bit longer than this. So I've got about 1.5 inches too much metal on this end, and this end is just about on center. It's easier to bend it if you have more sticking out, so you get more leverage. And also, I've used this buck quite a few times. Now it has stops in it that limit how deeply this band of metal can fit into the fixture, and that's very convenient. The first couple of grill shells I made from this, I had to hand set the depth of this, and although you can do it, it's a lot easier if you just tack weld the stop into place, so you just bottom it out and it's a done deal. Everybody with me so far? So in I don't know what, maybe 10 minutes time, we have a band that fits reasonably well. See what I'm saying? We're not that far off. And of course we do the same thing on the other side, weld them together, and only then would we think about hammering this edge over. So that wasn't so hard, was it? Now obviously making a buck/hammer form like this is a pretty big deal. I would expect to spend 2 full days making a part like this. But I don't know how you could make a part like this accurately without such a fixture to work over. Just don't know how you do that. Questions so far? Well, to save a little time, I pre-made the inner band. Made 2 pieces in exactly the way I showed you and welded them together. And this fits in the form like that, real nice and snug. And I drilled cleco holes. I drilled holes through this band for clecos, so I can use clecos to position the parts together. So the material I'm using is 3003 H14. The H14 part means that it's half hard. When you buy it, you actually can specify different hardnesses of metal. H14 is far and away the most popular, the most common. But you can get metal that's annealed from the factory. That would be T0, or from the mill, I should say.
That zero stuff is terrible.
Yeah, tell us why it's terrible.
It won't work harden very well as you do it. And when I made a couple of back ends for Cobras
Yeah.
out of it, and when you hammer out the welds, instead of it making the piece you want to do something and do it, everything around it moves.
Yeah.
Not just the piece that you're hammering.
Right.
And it doesn't work hardened, so you've only got to look at it and there's a dent in it.
Yeah. So that's why H14 is much preferred.
Yeah.
It's only in rare instances that you'd want fully annealed stock for this kind of work.
Yeah.
So in doing the bending that I've done so far, the half hard works great for me. But when it comes to curling this edge over, it really would be nice to have that part annealed, because it's a lot of work in the corners to get that metal to lay down where it needs to. So I'll use a couple of different tools to hammer with. Use a low crown plastic hammer for the outside part. So I needed to use a hammer with some curvature to the face, or a mallet, because in corners like this, a flat face tool, the face would only hit at the edges. It would put marks in it. But now that it's laying down flat, I can use a low crown hammer to refine it. We're done. Now, how would you do this with any accuracy without a fixture like this? I don't know. I don't know how else to do it. Can't think of a better way. So we can pass this around and you can, ooh, I thought a spot I didn't hit. You can all take an up close and personal look. So that wasn't so bad, was it? So here's where we're going, fellas. I did this in a previous workshop, but this is the general idea of where we're going. So we've done the inner part already, and we're going to start shaping the top part. Should I pass this around too? Of course I should.
So now we have the first of 6 demonstrations down. As usual, Ron gave an excellent demonstration with a little extra information on the material and the tools that he used. Be sure to watch the next demonstration by Ron, which will be probably the 3rd one from now, where he will finish the top portion of the 32 Ford grill shell. Next up will be Mick Clarke, who will be building a small portion of a Cobra right front fender. So thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the demonstrators that were here at my shop for the 2025 metal bashing meet.